these 1.5 decades that I've been working into this industry, the basic thing that I look for is the willingness to learn. I've seen recently that even if we highlight bold saying that, okay, these are the things which you need to carry, or these are the things which you need to send to us, those are the exact things which are missed by the candidates. So recruitment challenges, one main challenge is commitment, that they have pre-decided that I want to abscond. I don't care about the letters, I don't care about the salary. So there's a typical behavioral set as well, which we observe while we are onboarding a candidate. So right now what we follow is complete transparency, so which we believe is the only tool that works here. So what I practice and encourage is complete radical honesty during the interview. A sense of ownership is what our employer value proposition is. A sense of recruitment and talent acquisition, it is the most important first step of the HR career.
Hi viewers, are you applying to hundreds of jobs but hearing nothing back? Do you feel you are qualified on paper and yet constantly getting rejected? Most candidates think hiring is only about skills and experience, but the reality is companies are evaluating far more than that. And here's the problem: job seekers are often never told why they get rejected, which means they keep repeating the same mistakes in interviews, resumes, communication, and even in how they position themselves professionally. In today's episode, we are going to decode what really happens behind the hiring table, what recruiters actually notice, what makes candidates stand out, and how professionals can align themselves better with company cultures and long-term career growth. To unpack this, I have brought someone who has spent years building teams, evaluating talent, and shaping work culture across organizations. She has worked closely with leadership teams on hiring strategy, employee experience, organizational development, performance management, which means she has a front row view of what companies truly look for in candidates beyond just resumes. So without wasting a single second, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Let's hear it from Dhanashri Kore, Assistant Vice President, Human Resources at Knowledge-Thon. Dhanashri Madam, welcome to Let's Hear It From.
Thank you for having me, Ajay.
Yes, it is a pleasure to have you here, and this discussion is going to be very amazing. Madam, before I delve into the questionnaire, please enlighten us, please walk us through your career journey, your key turning points, and what shaped your philosophy as a people leader.
So this is something interesting, and whenever I talk with my team members also, they ask me, how did you start? Why did you feel that you wanted to be a HR? So my answer to them always is that I was a medical student, and so I've done my biology during my HSC, and I wanted to enter into the medical zone of the career. However, the purpose was same. So I never got an admission into MBBS, and I got into dentistry. However, I never wanted to treat myself as a dentist. So I thought, okay, serving people is what my purpose is. So instead of being a medical practitioner, why not get into a different zone altogether? And this is where I landed into management side of it. And I took admission for my BBA into service sector marketing, and I completed my BBA from Midsom IT, and then I completed my post-graduation from Wellinkers. So that was where my turning point was. I got into HR, and before that, after I completed my BBA, I was also working part-time and a little bit of full-time as well. So I never took the decision of immediately getting into a post-graduation course, but I wanted to explore, okay, is marketing my side? Is human resources my side? Or is operations my side? So that's where I got into human resources. And so this decision was my turning point.
Yeah, it looks more like an accident, but you have eventually come to the right place, and and eventually come to the right company. I quickly move on to the next question, the core of this podcast on talent and hiring philosophy. Dhanashree ma'am, please tell us, what do you fundamentally look for in candidates beyond skills, beyond experience, and beyond fancy designations?
Okay, so over these 1.5 decades that I've been working into this industry, the basic thing that I look for is the willingness to learn, taking the complete ownership of where you want to go, and act as a solutionist and not as a person who is continuously asking for help. So that's where your entire, action of hiring goes.
Going forward, how do you assess cultural and role fit during hiring?
Okay, so I mean, just before starting the podcast, we were talking about
Yes.
it, and that's where I feel that culture fit, and so I call it that org fit and role fit. So job fit personality is very easy to find. Culture fit personality is something which is very difficult, and if you're into lateral hirings, then finding a culture fit person, so your priorities should be defined, whether you want to hire a person with priority 1 role fit and priority 2 being culture fit, or priority 1 being culture fit and priority 2 being role fit. Because when you go out hunting for laterals and finding a person who will align to your culture from day 1, it is a little difficult and tedious job altogether, because someone who's molded into a different culture and has imbibed that culture, getting into your culture is not easy for that person, and it is not easy for the person who's hiring and mentoring as well. So we as HRs need to understand that culture fit is something which has to be imbibed over a period inside the candidate, and not expected from day 1. And role fit or job fit, it's very easy, because you have the skills, you know what that person is doing. There are assessments for it, but for culture fit you cannot have those assessments part of it,
which is where the actual challenge arises. Yes. So, madam, moving forward, can you share some common mistakes candidates make during the interview process, during the hiring process? Some subtle mistakes which you can share with them.
The first and foremost thing that I have been looking at is not being on top of things. Okay. So when I say this, I intend to be on top of every available information, right from reading the email sent by the recruiter until understanding the job requirements, asking the right questions, relevant questions wherever required for better understanding of the role, day-to-day work, or the reporting style, the processes of the organization, and so on. So these are the things which a common mistake is made by the individuals who apply for the jobs, because we have seen recently that even if we highlight bold saying that, okay, these are the things which you need to carry, or these are the things which you need to send to us, those are the exact things which are missed by the candidates.
Let's move on to, madam, recruitment challenges. What are the biggest challenges you are currently facing in recruitment?
So recruitment challenges, one main challenge is commitment. So when I say commitment, it is a big word, I know, but these are the commitments, smaller commitments to attend the interviews, being on time, or else maybe after recruitment, joining and then staying
Yes.
committed to the job. So we had seen cases where people join in a day or two. They understand, okay, my job has XYZ targets. So no, I would feel I would want to back out, and they abscond. Or there are people who say, okay, I've got an offer and they want me to join tomorrow, and I want to join them, and I want to abscond. So these are the upfront discussions which happen with the HR team or the managers at times, that they have pre-decided that I want to abscond. I don't care about the letters. I don't care about the salary.
But how do you handle these challenges? Typically, candidates not showing up on the date of joining.
So these challenges are going to be there. So we just build a pipeline. We keep a second option ready for ourselves. And so there's a typical behavioral set as well, which we observe while we are onboarding a candidate. So there are certain pre-onboarding formalities which the candidate is supposed to fulfill from his or her end. So over there you see gaps. That's a highlight point for you. Okay, this candidate might not be serious, or if this candidate is serious, then before we calling that candidate, they call us and ask us, okay, what are the next steps? So these are a few behavioral aspects which we monitor, and we ensure or we are ready with our own intuitions and gut feelings with these behavioral traits.
Based on your experiences. Madam, moving on to the next question, I often see, there are gaps between candidates' expectations and organizational realities. So how do you address these gaps?
Right now, what we follow is complete transparency. So, which we believe is the only tool that works here. And it has to start from day one. It cannot start when some gaps are being observed. So from day one of hiring conversation, it has to start. So I strongly believe that overselling a role or the organization, probably it does more damage than doing something good, right? So it leads to early attrition at some point in time, a sense of being misleading sense which is being imbibed, that okay, this transparency is not given on day one, or this was not being told to me while I was applying for the role. Right? So this harms both the candidates and the organization or the brand altogether. So what I practice and encourage is complete radical honesty during the interview itself, so that no hiccups or gaps are seen going forward. Tell the candidate what a typical day looks like, what the pressure points are in this particular job role, what growth also looks like, maybe not overwhelming them, but realistic growth looks like for them. And the expectations are set right from the beginning, so that people who join have their eyes open wide while they are joining us. And these are the kind of people that we want, or probably the industry wants.
How would you describe the company culture at Knowledge-thon, and what does high performance culture means to you in practice?
Again, culture is something which is at the core of any organization, and at Knowledge-thon it is entrepreneurial. Okay, so we believe that it is a place for people not just for doing jobs, because they are building something better for the future. Okay, so because we are into education industry, we train a lot of people, we train a lot of professionals. So this is building something better for the future. The culture is directly impacting to these people by giving them their ownerships of the jobs that they are doing. So it is nothing like you have an idea, you talk it out to your manager or your manager's manager or the management, and it gets implemented after 3 quarters, and probably who knows whether you'll stay with the organization after 3 quarters or not.
Yes.
So we don't believe in that. If there's an idea, we are open to hearing those ideas. It is collaborative approach where it gives you a broader sense of accountability and pride in the work that you're trying to do in the organization.
Amazing. Dharmeshwari madam, share some initiatives that you drive for employee well-being and engagement at Knowledge-thon.
Okay. So right now, we have to move our focus to employee engagement according to the generation that we are dealing with.
Yes,
So
yes. Bola.
it's Gen Zs, right? Correct. So usually for Gen Zs, the hustle bustle culture is what they like a lot. So if you play games with them, if you take them for an activity, that's what they like. However, along with that, we are also trying to imbibe the sense of well-being along with it. So may it be psychological safety. So if someone, so I'll tell you, because 60% of the strength that we have at Knowledge-thon are hostelites, or probably they are staying away from their families. So that psychological safety is also important at some given point in time. So if someone is not well, it has to be either the team, the manager, or the internal system, or probably the HR system, which has to know that yes, this person is supposed to be taken care of. So yeah, I mean, people should feel comfortable raising concerns as well. So sharing ideas and even disagreeing at some given point in time. So this is what we do for the employee well-being. So that is the foundation. And beyond that, we make sure that people are growing, because stagnation is one of the biggest, I would say, not open, but it is a silent killer right now, which is seen in the engagement. So giving a chance to open up, speak up by one-on-one connects with the HR team, and even skip levels at some given point in time. And like I mentioned, regular check-ins, not just during the appraisal cycles, which usually the HR does, or probably at some given point in time, the appraisal cycles also the HRs are absent. It's just the manager giving the figures and the numbers. And yes, we have a very strong reward and recognition system, because acknowledging, being a sales-driven organization, the rewards and recognition is what motivates people a lot. So acknowledging people and their efforts publicly and not silently, and again, a consistency into acknowledging their efforts goes a long way and gives a sustaining motivation to it as well.
Yes. Madam, let's move from company culture to employee value proposition. What makes Knowledge-thon a compelling place to work? By this question, I mean, why should employees join Knowledge-thon?
Like I mentioned, a sense of ownership. So
yes. Some of the points actually you have covered, but then yes.
Yes.
Carry on.
So so a sense of ownership is what our employer value proposition is, because in most of the organizations that we see, at least the small medium organizations or the growing organizations, there's no sense of ownership or accountability directly given by the management to the people or the employees working for the organization. But over here we say, no, act as this is your organization, this is your company, and take the decisions accordingly. So we love people bringing solutions to us, and we also reward people bringing in those solutions to us as well. Second thing is, we also have Nolathon Partners Indexed. It is just like ESOP. So we give partnership to those people. Obviously, there are criterias aligned to it. So we give partnership to those people who take up this ownership, accountability, and the decision making in their own hands, in a right sense, with the core values of integrity, quality, and trust at the base, and move up the ladder.
Let's move forward to some advice for job seekers in today's tough job market. How can candidates stand out in a competitive talent market, especially which is imbibed by AI and automation? Let's move.
Okay, so AI is still a myth for me.
Okay,
because because being a HR, I don't know, probably tomorrow if AI starts hiring people instead of me. Sorry. But so the candidates, if they have to stand out, or they have to make themselves visible into this competitive talent market, then, like I mentioned, their homework has to be strong. So they should understand what the company is expecting, or probably have the right sense of asking relevant questions, without which you are not going to understand whether this is the right job for you, or whether this is the right organization for you. Beyond that, the communication also matters, because and your presentability. So people walking in floaters, chappals, or probably normal jeans and a shirt. Even if we say that this is the next generation, and we are trying to align to Gen Zs now, doesn't mean that the professional levels are getting wiped out over here. So talent is the first mirror where you present yourself. So in a market where you are able to present yourself, that's the first thing. Second thing is where you are able to commit yourself, which is an increasingly rare persona seen right now in the industry, because relying on a person is a differentiator. So I don't know whether if I should rely on a person who can walk out tomorrow without even telling me. So if you have to stand out, get your basics cleaned by doing your homework, presenting yourself properly, committing to the organization or the job that you're seeking for, and being or making yourself reliable and trustworthy.
Madam, let's move forward. This is a typical and a very specific question for MBA HRs. I see many MBA HR freshers who are considering roles, in fact, who are avoiding roles in recruitment and talent acquisition. Is it a right move?
So if you talk about any fresher today, when we tell them, okay, you have to sit down and make 20 calls, 30 calls, 50 calls a day, they do not understand that recruitment or talent acquisition is something which is going to shape them into the bigger good of HR. Because without talking with people, without understanding their perspectives, without understanding their behaviors, HR makes no sense in the larger run, right? In the longer run, your interactions, your experiences through the recruitment cycle, through the onboarding cycle, through the talent acquisition cycle is what makes sense. If you are able to articulate all of these experiences when you grow up the ladder, then you
Yes.
will be growing. Otherwise, you will be stagnated. So, recruitment and talent acquisition, it is the most important first step of the HR career.
Madam, moving forward, this is one more question on career advice for MBA HRs. What does it take to eventually grow into a CHRO role today? Madam,
Okay, so first and foremost thing is for being a CHRO, like I mentioned, you have to climb up the ladder slowly. You cannot jump to step 5 or step 10. So start with talent acquisition, get into HR operations or a generalist role, evolve yourself into specializations like learning and development, compensation and benefits, or the current trend is basically into HR analytics, which is becoming a core skill for any HR. And obviously, if you present the data well, if you know how finance works, if you know how sales works, then you can analyze and give some insights or inputs to your management as well. So the more you understand the business you are supporting, the faster and the further growth is there for you. So this is the right path for becoming a CHRO is what I believe.
Absolutely. That was such an amazing piece of answer. All right, Dhanashree madam, now comes the exciting part of this conversation. We are moving into the rapid fire round. Short questions, instinctive answers, no overthinking. My first rapid fire question goes to you right now. One hiring red flag you spot in the first 30 seconds of an interview.
Screening the resume and having spelling mistakes in it.
Great. Resume or LinkedIn, which tells you more about a candidate?
Both of them, because at times LinkedIn talks more, at times your resume talks more. You have to align.
Yes. One word that defines a great employee.
As of now, being a great employee is taking accountability, ownership of tasks.
Yes, no wonder. One interview answer you are tired of hearing.
Sorry, I was late.
Okay. Guys, degree versus attitude, what wins?
Attitude.
One thing freshers should stop doing immediately.
Over expecting what their colleges teach them.
Yes, right, you nailed it just. One quality that instantly makes someone leadership material.
Being sympathetic and empathetic and understanding business at the same time.
Wow. A workplace trend you absolutely love right now.
Workplace trend. Okay, I'm not a person on Instagram, but
Right. I think you have answered it. What's more difficult, hiring or retaining talent?
I would say both at some given point in time. But then yes, hiring goes first.
Yes.
Retaining comes later.
One thing candidates should always ask recruiters.
What does the company do?
Oh my goodness. My last rapid fire question goes to you right now. Your instant reaction to open to work banners on LinkedIn. And this is slightly difficult.
Open to work banners show your commitment towards an organization. So if you have recently joined somewhere, there are still people I see with open to work banners. I don't know, for like maybe in 15 days, 20 days, they update their banners and say they are again open to work.
Yes.
So
I have personally loved those answers very much, and this was definitely a masterclass in hiring careers and workplace cultures in under 5 minutes. So, Dhanashree madam, thank you so much for joining us today. This conversation was packed with practical insights that I am sure many of you will genuinely help professionals and job seekers navigate their careers better. And to everyone watching, if this episode gave you a new perspective on hiring, growth, workplace culture, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We will keep bringing you more such real conversations with leaders shaping the future of work. Until next time, this is Ajay Ankar. You are listening to Let's Hear It From. Stay connected. Bye for now.